I hear you. So let's get into the EIP. So the EIP one, it is low. Volume better now. I just need to talk a little closer to this mic. I put it on this little. I had this on my desk for a while. I just haven't moved it. So let's go ahead and get into the EIP 1011. So EIP stands for Ethereum Improvement Plan, and this is what would be in like a development world. This is like the backlog. It's proposals of potential paths forward. I would call this at the from a development side, I would call this like at an epic level. And then from this, there's going to be different use cases, stories, task level work that ends up happening underneath it. We don't see the full actual agile backlog from Ethereum of what they decide to work on and stuff, but we see the epic level. That is really the EIPs and kind of what the punch list within that package of an EIP is going to be done. In this particular 1011, from regards to the mining side, this one's pretty important because this has to do with essentially their movement forward with Casper. We've all been waiting for Casper, which is moving to a proof of stake, and then how they were actually going to implement it. We've heard a lot of different checkpoints with regards to hybrid models where you'd have essentially proof of work for some blocks, and then you'd have a proof of stake hybrid checkpoint where proof of stake would then mint the next block, and then it would move on back to a series of proof of work. And at the end of the day, if you take away all the BS with it, it just what is it? How does it affect the average miner with that? And in this case, our basic assumption was when they would move to a hybrid proof of stake is that the assurance level wouldn't have been changed. It would have stayed at 3.0. I mean, originally we were figuring that would stay at 5.0. They decided to take the assurance level down to 3.0. That's the block payout. So for Ethereum, every 15 seconds, they put out 3 Ethereum to the network. So whoever's the winner of that block distributes that share amongst the pool winner. So if you had a portion of that, if you had hashes go into that pool, you would get a proportional share of what your input into that pool was for those 3 Ethereum. So you'd incrementally earn up to the point of the payout. If your payout was set to 1 Ether, then you would get paid out whatever frequency it takes you based on how much hash power you have. In this particular case, based on this EIP, they are proposing to drop the assurance level to 0.6. So a pretty significant drop. And then not only that, it's a matter of how often, how often is going to be the hybrid model, and I need to go through this and look, and that's what we're going to do today. So like in the original proposal, it was going to be 99 blocks of proof of work and then 1 block of proof of stake. So i.e. you would have a 1% decline on the amount of output per 100 blocks, right? Because 1 block out of 100 is going to proof of stake, so we would not see that as miners. When we start looking at this EIP, so all we got here is this is the GitHub, this is the EIP master list, and then this is just under EIP 1011, and you can see the kind of top here. It gives you an abstract. This is specifies the hybrid proof of stake or proof of work proof of stake model for Ethereum's mainnet. Existing proof of work mechanics are used for block creation, and the proof of stake mechanism is a layer on top using a smart contract. So what this allows, FFG allows the underlying proof of work to be finalized. The network security is greatly shifted from proof of work to proof of stake. Proof of work block rewards are reduced. So as we get down in here, they've had the transitioning on the roadmap and the yellow paper since launch of the protocol. This was the original concept of, hey, we're going to move to a proof of stake. If we get through here, excessive part of the rationale originally why Vitalik and Ethereum wanted to move away from proof of work was the excessive energy consumption. And this is this deserves its own discussion in general for proof of work mining. I mean, personally, I don't think proof of work mining is going to go anywhere anytime soon across multiple coins. However, at some point in time, there's going to be an energy discussion. And it's going to, I mean, technically as time and technology moves on, there's a hope that either energy becomes a lot more plentiful or there's easier ways to get energy that isn't so hard on the environment, that type of thing. But that's more of a, I'd call it a philosophical discussion right now towards a more detailed roadmap discussion. I mean, mind you, if all the other coins that are proof of work went to a proof of stake model at some point, you still have Bitcoin that's not moving away from proof of work ever. So because Bitcoin's whole concept is a whole bunch of soft forks and not doing a hard fork. So you're never going to get the consensus that's going to be required to do that. It's just humans, right? So if a coin chooses because of this particular reason to move away from it, with equal access for mining pool centralization, all of these kind of these discussion points where, you know, the ASICs provide distinct motivation to make the transition. So, I mean, this is kind of the backing of why they're wanting to push more forward. And part of my concern with this in general is if it's not ready, then don't push it. But if it is ready, go ahead and testnet it and punch holes through it and make sure that it's ready. But, you know, you have a multi-billion-dollar asset here that is a platform that could be worth eventually trillions. If it's running a lot of infrastructure, do not rush to push this. So this part right here, motivation, is the part that kind of scares me a little. You know, yes, this is a thing, but don't push the protocol into a proof of stake because of it if it's not ready. So I'm really hoping that you know, the testnet really allows some good rigorous testing on this before they go and you know, cause an issue. Having it as a hybrid, I think they're still going to be pretty decently okay, because of you know, a hybrid model's been proven countless times. I mean, we got a lot of different protocols out there with hybrid models. If it was all proof of stake, I'd be a lot more worried. But the hybrid model, I think they still are going to be okay. Oh, look at the biddies. Thanks, Nuffy, for those 1,200 bits, buddy. I'll cover all the bits and all the follows and stuff after we get through this part here, too. Until recently, they've been talking about the research of, you know, this particular, the hybrid proof of stake model in the Casper-friendly finality gadget paper. I've cited this paper several times when I start talking. I think this is the Cornell one. Yeah, Cornell University. So if you go into here and you can see their different versions here. Let's see here, download PDF. We'll just get that in the background here. So this was the original paper that kind of talked to it. And this is the one I usually cite when I start talking that the first instantiation of this is going to be proof of stake hybrid. Because in here they talk through these same kind of things. And they explain on how it actually will work and how the checkpoint blocks work. And if you really want to dive down into the inner workings of how Ethereum will handle the different accountability when it comes to chain, you know, security, and how it will solve, you know, double spend problems and all that kind of fun stuff, then this is the kind of the paper for you. But bottom line, the main pieces that I was looking at on this was really what was the hybrid model and what was the incentivization changes that we would end up having. And in this paper, I think at the very top here, they talk through some of that, where they talk there for right here, Genesis checkpoint, hype tree, Zect 100. Yeah, so this is when it gets into that it would be the signing mechanisms that it will work to keep the thing functional, and like on this one, it would have been that 100th block. It would do the proof of stake signing. But as I look through what they have posted here, a few things have been adjusted and changed. One of the pieces that I want to do some more research on, but if I come down here and I look just on the surface, it looks like Casper contract parameters. A lot of people were wondering if the staking was going to be 1,000. From this, it looks like minimum deposit size is 1,500. So if that's the actual contract size to stake, then that was about another 50% increase on what I think a lot of folks thought that there was going to be. And then when we get down into a lot of these are just the states of the rewards. There is a section in here that shows the assurance rate down here. A lot of these are just some of the changes that are going through. Set to 1,500 to natural upper bound on the validators bounding the overhead to the messages. Yeah. So the assurance here was a fixed amount to fund a Casper contract. This gives enough runway to approximately run for 2 years. Acting similar to the difficult to bomb, funding crunch forces the network to hard fork in the relative future. So these are just more poison pill setups that Ethereum puts in there to kind of maintain control. It's that kind of, I want to call it the centralized control, but it is kind of the centralized control to where they can, you know, properly, if they need to hard fork for updates, that they can do that by coding in a poison pill. And that feature is an opportunity to upgrade the contract and transition to full POS. So it's essentially what they're saying here is the hybrid system is not going to be the permanent solution. They will have to come back in and make a change to this if they don't fix this within 2 years. So they're setting their boundary here. So you're looking at the assurance pay down. So it's essentially like a debit account that pays down for 1 million ETH over a period of time, assuming 10 million ETH validated deposits. So 2 years of runway essentially before they have to do that. The proof of root, this is the main one that I went down to in this white paper when I started, or this EIP when I saw it a few days ago, was the proof of work block reward reduced to 0.6 ETH per block. And their rationale is that the security of the chain has already greatly shifted from proof of work, to proof of stake. So bottom line, that in English is saying that we have enough security because most of it's pivoting over to proof of stake. So we don't need to pay an incentivized proof of work at the same rate or even close to the same rate. So they're dropping it to 0.6 to have some level of participation, but not near to the scale. So, I mean, mathematically, I mean, that's a pretty sizable decrease. I mean, let's... Oh, nope, wrong way. I mean, that's 20% of it. So that's an 80% drop in assurance rate. So that's a pretty significant payout decrease. So mathematically, right out of the gate, if difficulty stayed the same, that's about an 80% drop in your normal payouts. So yeah, I mean, if you were making $2 a day right now on Ethereum, you'd be making like 60. Well, not even 60 cents. You'd be making like 40 cents, which is a pretty large hit if you're proof of work. So bottom line, Ethereum is going to drop to the very, very bottom, I think, on profitability once this rolls. And it will take a significant decrease in hash power to the network to make it profitable again. And I mean, this goes with the ebb and flow of, I mean, if this happens, I mean, so a full proof of stake would have been a complete loss of all ability to mine. So this still gives you some level of mining. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, they're just de-incentivizing it by and large to try to reduce. It'll reduce significantly. I mean, at least 80% drop of to keep current profitability, and that's assuming that the coin stays at the same price. So, ooh, TechTuber with 1,000 bits, buddy. Thank you very much for that. I can see the which one? So there is no date. This is a proposal. So this is like you come in here and there's probably a thread that's associated with this. And we can look over at the issues on this particular. Oh, this is the issues at the EIP level. Hold on. Let's go back. Under this, I don't see that. This is a sub. There's probably a Reddit post that's associated with this, I would assume. And there's going to be probably a lot of discussion on this. But this is a proposal. This isn't slated to be accepted as is. This is one of those things that people can probably respond back to and say, you're crazy. What are you doing? Maybe it should be more. You know, all kinds of things. So that's kind of the next piece. I mean, it's a pretty aggressive pullback. But I mean, there's going to be a handful. 20% of the current network is still a lot of hash power. But it comes down to what people are going to be mining after that. I'm seeing some people's questions. One thing considers proof of stake shifted to the price of Ethereum will be as large players will be buying the ETH so they can have a full node. It's 1,500 for a full node. Yeah, it says it in here that it's 1,500. It says it right down here. It's right here. Minimum deposit size is 1,500. And what they're assuming is that they're assuming with from a validator to count on a minimum staking of ETH, we estimate that 1,500 ETH is the minimum deposit assumed at 10 million, and total deposits will be approximately 900 validators at any given time. So they're making an assumption here that there's going to be 900 votes. So there'll be 900 validators out there voting that will fit into 37 blocks or 24 votes per second. Or 24 volts per block. We have experimented with more dynamic nodes for the minimum deposit, but this tend to introduce significant complexities without data from a live network to see premature optimizations. So this kind of statement here is true to where, you know, this is all in theory. They're taking assumptions that that's good. That's a good amount. They're taking assumptions that total deposits will be here and that they'll have roughly this many, which then sets and predicates how many votes fit into a particular block. I mean, there's math here that needs to be validated once it hits, main chain. And I mean, this is a pretty aggressive. I mean, proof of stake was always going to be a aggressive change. It's a significant change to such a large network. This is where the various folks that have made contributions to public chains. And then when they're going to go introduce such a drastic change, being like the third largest crypto, second largest crypto on the planet, there's going to be a lot of interest parties that, Ethereum's going to do what Ethereum's going to do from pretty much what Vitalik's been like. But, it could go very good and it could go very, very bad. But with them having enough control to make a change, if it's catastrophic or something happens or you have a chain lock or something bad occurs that wasn't understood at a high distribution scale, then of course they could do another emergency hard fork, and then just machines would flag for it, pools would flag for it, and then they could fix it. It's just you're just now shattering and breaking all kinds of things, but that being said, they've had it on the test net, and they're taking some optimizations here. The big thing is an optimization to this. Once this has been implemented, this particular piece should be a soft fork if they want to change any of the parameters here. Part of it's getting the parameters on the main chain to where you could have these different main factors out here. Delay. These are just variables now. Once this contract params are in place, they could soft fork any of this to tweak it. So that's a key piece here. Part of it's just getting this infrastructure. If you can understand that all these different sections here, these parameters, This is the core infrastructure. This is the stuff that gets added in a hard fork, that if it's making a significant change to the underlying chain, these are the functions and parameters that are in there that are actually getting part of the hard fork. And then after that, once they have this infrastructure in place, then making changes to it is just soft fork updates, which just means that it's just a code update that people have to accept as validators, as pools, or if you're solo mining and hoping for that rare, very unlikely chance that you'll win your own block, that you're on the right chain. But that's the EIP. If you guys haven't checked it out, you can read through it. I mean, most of it's going to be just the parameter. It reads more like a tech sheet, or a tech spec, as I would call it, with some of the parameters and kind of the details of said parameter and contract data, and then some of the motivations. So the big pieces for us are the motivation and then their assurance when it comes to mining. So that's those two things.